They stopped inviting us to the meetings after the third cycle. Not that anyone on Earth really cared. The Interstellar Council, with all its pomp and pretense, sat on its throne of dying empires and bloated pride, treating our world like a disobedient child. We were the newcomers, the unpredictable species, the ones who refused to kneel and begged no favors. They wanted Earth to play by their rules, share our advancements, sign their treaties, bow to their ancient hierarchies. But Earth said nothing. We watched, listened, then turned our backs and went home. That silence? It terrified them more than any warship ever could. I was there when it started, back when I wore the uniform of an Earth defense engineer and still believed we might someday join the galaxy's high table. I used to sit behind polished screens watching delegates from hundreds of planets wave their arms, argue in 20 languages, and pat each other's backs like some universal theater. But Earth never sent anyone important. Just observers. No voice, no votes, no interest. I remember the last meeting. A Zarn diplomat, a six-eyed, silk-robed thing with a voice like boiling water, stood and said, "The humans insult our unity with their absence. Perhaps the Council should consider sanctions." He got a few nods, some quiet murmurs, a few smirks. One delegate from the Year-In Worlds even laughed and said, "Maybe Earth is too primitive to matter." That was the last time we were officially mentioned. No one asked what we were doing back home. No one thought to check. No one dared. Because while the galaxy obsessed over diplomacy, posturing, and trade routes, Earth built. Buried beneath our deserts, frozen into the dark corners of the poles, hidden behind the silence of abandoned satellites and quiet cities, we built the giants. Not statues, not monuments, steel, 10 stories tall. Atom-powered, mind-linked to human pilots trained from birth, titans that moved like men but hit like gods, each one named after forgotten battles, fallen cities, or the soldiers who died in wars we never talked about. These weren't machines for show. They weren't symbols. They were warnings and weapons, and I helped build the first one. His name was Ashbreaker. They kept him under New Siberia, sealed in a pit deeper than any ocean trench. His heart was the first zero-core engine to ever hold stable, and his arms were molded from depleted tungsten. I remember standing on his shoulder once, staring out at the ice fields beyond. Feeling like I was standing beside the end of the world. No one outside Earth knew he even existed. That was the point. We didn't tell anyone. Not the Council. Not our allies. Hell, not even half our own population knew what was being created beneath their feet. We let them sleep, let them live normal lives, while a select few of us prepared for what we knew was coming. Because we'd studied the Council's history. We'd read the fine print in their treaties. We'd seen the so-called peacekeeping missions on weaker planets. We watched what happened to any world that didn't fall in line. First came the diplomats, then the sanctions, then the orbital bombardments, clean and quiet. They never used ground troops. Why would they? The Council's enemies died from space, vaporized before they ever understood they'd lost. But they never faced giants before. And now, the time had come. The message came through a week before the summit. One final chance for Earth to attend the gathering at Yulin Prime. A last invitation, they called it. But we knew what it really was. An ultimatum. Join or be silenced. I was in the war room when the decision was made. Commander Harlan, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from stone and regret, stood up and said, "Let them talk. We'll respond in our own language." And we did. 7 days later, the galaxy watched as Earth's skies tore open. One by one they rose, 1,000 steel titans stepping into the void, surrounded by black stars and silence. No transmissions, no warning, just a formation. Perfect. unified, unbreakable. The Council laughed at Earth for skipping meetings. They weren't laughing now. The first thing the galaxy felt wasn't fear. It was confusion. They didn't understand what they were looking at. The giants emerged in silence. No declarations, no threats, no insignia of allegiance. Just 1,000 steel titans breaching the gravity well of Earth in synchronized ascent, a slow, rising wall of mechanical defiance. Each one shaped like a man, but forged from something darker. The Council's satellites scrambled to process it, relays pinging each other in panic. Their long-range scanners stuttered. Their AI analysts hesitated, because nothing in their system fit what they were seeing. No alien world had ever done this, not without warning, not without boasting, not with this kind of silence. And that's what made them start to worry. The Council's emergency chamber was called to order 6 hours after the sighting. 62 species, 300 delegates, most of them yelling over one another. A few tried to play it cool, sipping thick liquids from ceremonial cups and pretending Earth hadn't just rewritten the rules of power in a single launch. I watched the live feed from beneath Oslo Core, deep in the control chamber of Giant Command. Each of us had a direct neural link to the unit we helped construct. Every movement they made, every signal they broadcast, we felt it like a second pulse beneath our skin. Mine was still Ashbreaker. I could feel his chest plate cooling from atmospheric breach, his zero-core humming like a restrained animal. 10,000 tons of war machine idling in low orbit, staring down a galaxy that used to mock us. The command center smelled like sweat and static. Dozens of us stood at our stations, not in military uniforms, but dark-tinted suits laced with interface tech. We weren't soldiers, we were keepers, engineers who became something more the moment our giants woke. Someone behind me muttered, "They're going to panic. Watch." He was right. The Council had been waiting for Earth to misstep. But this wasn't a misstep. This was a goddamn uppercut. They tried to hail us through diplomatic channels first, frequencies we stopped responding to years ago. Then they switched to open-band transmissions, blasting message after message into space. Warnings, inquiries, requests for clarification. Earth didn't answer. Why would we? The first real response came from the Valari Dominion. One of the oldest members of the Council, they fancied themselves enforcers. Kept peace through intimidation. Sent dreadnoughts to hover over disobedient moons as a form of gentle persuasion. They dispatched a scout fleet, 25 ships, lightly armed but fast. They approached Earth's orbit with caution, broadcasting a repeating message in 5 languages. Earth authorities, you are requested to stand down your units and provide explanation. This is a formal inquiry under Council Regulation 772. Regulations, protocols, paper chains. Ashbreaker turned his head, not fast, not aggressively, just enough. A subtle shift, and the entire fleet stopped dead in space. They saw him. All of them did. His face wasn't smooth like a synthetic. It was carved in brutal, sharp geometry, expressionless but full of presence. He didn't glow. No fancy lights, no gleaming alloys. He was raw, battle-scarred already, and he hadn't even moved yet. Then another giant rotated into view. Then another. Then 5 more. The scout fleet pulled back. No weapons fired, no damage done. But the message was received. Earth wasn't playing anymore. Back at Council HQ, they lost it. The feed caught everything, panic behind marble walls, delegates shouting for military action. The Drax ambassador slammed a crystalline hand on the podium, shrieking that Earth was a rogue world harboring WMDs in violation of Galactic peace mandate. That was rich, coming from a species that once sterilized its own colonies to prevent cultural contamination. The truth was simpler. Earth had scared them. Because they didn't know how. We had no right to do this. By their standards, we were still infants. We weren't part of any interstellar military alliance. We didn't contribute to council decisions. We didn't even attend. We were silent. And that silence turned out to be far louder than they expected. Inside the chamber, I watched General Harlan step onto the platform. No uniform, just his old gray coat, burned at the sleeve from an old reactor fire. He tapped the console and activated the global override. Every giant in orbit went still, their heads locking forward in unison, facing the same direction, back to Earth. A signal. Earth was ready. The rest of the galaxy wasn't. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. I lay on the cot near Ashbreaker's neural interface and stared at the ceiling as the low hum of the Zero Core pulsed in the walls. My thoughts weren't calm. They were cluttered, full of old memories, training sessions, buried fears. I remembered the first time I linked with Ash. They warned us about it. Said it could feel like drowning, like your body was being pulled into another skeleton 10 times your size. They weren't wrong. The first connection nearly fried my brain. I felt everything. The weight of metal limbs, the tension in the joints, the balance sensors scanning every microshift in gravity. It was like suddenly having a body you didn't earn, but once you bonded with a giant, there was no going back. You became part of it. It became part of you. We were preparing for something big. We just didn't know how fast it was coming. At 0300 Earth UTC, we intercepted the message. It wasn't public. It was never meant to be. But our filters caught it, hidden in a diplomatic sub-channel. The Council had authorized containment. Not war. Not yet. But a unified fleet was being mobilized under the pretense of maintaining galactic order. They were coming. We all gathered in the underground amphitheater below Oslo Core. Over 300 of us, engineers, keepers, pilots, architects, tacticians, men who'd been told to prepare for this day but never told when. Harlan stood on the central platform, silent for a long time before he spoke. "They think we want to fight," he said. "We don't. But we're not going to kneel either. We've watched them take worlds for less, destroy civilizations for being inconvenient." And we said nothing. He paused, then looked around the room. "But we built something while they weren't watching. Not for conquest, not for show, for warning, for defense. For when they forgot who we were." He turned toward the holomap of Earth's orbit, where 1,000 steel giants floated like titans waiting for Judgment Day. Let's remind them. By the time the Council fleet reached Earth's outer orbit, every giant was online. They came in layers, dreadnoughts, carriers, scout interceptors, over 1,000 ships bearing insignias from every major galactic power. A show of unity, a show of force. They called it a non-lethal demonstration. But the second they crossed the outer defense grid, Earth went dark. No warnings, no alarms, just silence. We didn't respond, didn't raise shields, didn't power up our planetary weapons, because we didn't need to. That job belonged to the giants. Ashbreaker moved first. He turned his shoulders, slowly, like a man rolling out of bed after a long, cold sleep. Then his arms raised, not in aggression, but wide open. A posture that said, "Come see what we've become." Then the others followed. One by one, 1,000 war titans shifted position, forming a wall between Earth and the incoming fleet. The galaxy had brought ships. Earth brought monsters. I felt the moment Ashbreaker's systems went red. I didn't give the command. I was the command. The neural interface pulsed behind my eyes, and suddenly I was 10 stories tall with a magnetic core heart and steel for bones. Every fiber in my body felt different. I wasn't human anymore. I was more. And God, it felt good. Contact in 30 seconds, a voice whispered in my comm. Hold the line, I said back. 10 seconds. The first council ship hailed us. The Valari again. They hadn't learned. This is Commander Oral of the Dominion cruiser Velentar. Stand down immediately. You are in violation of... I cut the feed. Then I took one step forward. Just one. But the shockwave of Ashbreaker's movement sent a ripple through orbit, debris shaking, nearby cruisers spinning to stabilize. No weapons fired, no blood spilled, but every ship stopped moving. They'd never seen a world defend itself like this, not with words, but with silence. And 1,000 steel giants standing shoulder to shoulder, daring the galaxy to try. Nobody fired the first shot, and that's what made it worse. Tension like that doesn't just float in the air. It crushes lungs, tightens fists, makes grown men stare at blinking sensors and wonder if they'll die watching a red light change. You could feel it, running down your spine, crawling under your skin like static. Ashbreaker stood still. So did the rest. 1,000 giants, frozen in formation, glowing faintly from internal cores, absorbing solar radiation like it was nothing. It was the kind of stillness that made the enemy nervous, the kind of stillness that promised movement would be war. I watched through Ash's eyes. My mind tethered to his systems, deeper this time. It wasn't like last week. The link was stronger now, refined. They upgraded the neural interface without telling us, didn't even ask. I found out when I blacked out mid-sim 3 days ago and woke up hearing Ashbreaker's breathing inside my own skull. Except he didn't breathe. He pulsed. Inside the cockpit. You didn't see through windows. You became the giant. When Ash shifted, I felt metal shoulders grind. When the targeting HUD activated, I didn't see it on a screen. I saw it through Ashbreaker's perception. We were connected. Not as man and machine, but as one. And right now, we both wanted the same thing. For someone to try. The Council fleet blinked in a wide arc around us, forming a crescent formation about 2,000 kilometers from Earth's low orbit. Smart. Just close enough to feel brave, far enough to run if things got ugly. The coward's distance. A new voice crackled through the feed, high-pitched, slow, arrogant. To the Terran command, you have 60 seconds to initiate de-escalation protocols or be classified as hostile. They always needed to feel in control, even when they weren't. Especially then. I didn't answer. Nobody did. General Harlan had issued one global order, and it was carved into the neural cores of every pilot. Let them speak. Let them show the galaxy who they really are. And they were. Every second they sat out there, waving warnings and thin threats like banners, the more the galaxy saw what the Council was really made of. Fear wrapped in ceremony. They couldn't believe Earth had skipped their meetings, ignored their trade demands, refused their peace talks, only to arrive with this: steel gods, built in silence, standing in judgment. And now Earth held its breath. Back in Oslo Core, command silence was tight. No chatter, no unnecessary noise. Every terminal showed the same grid. Earth's orbit littered with metallic bodies and blinking ships. You didn't need to speak. The screen spoke loud enough. At 0413 UTC, the Council made its mistake. A Dryhax interceptor, likely some young captain trying to impress the admirals, broke formation and accelerated toward Earth's stratosphere. Quick, stupid, arrogant, a warning run, maybe. A flex. He didn't make it past the second gravity layer. Steel moved. Not Ash. One of the newer models. Ruinwalker, I think. Taller, sleeker, fast as hell. The second that interceptor tripped the zone, Ruinwalker's left arm activated. No missiles, no plasma, just a direct-line kinetic pulse. A rail blade jutted from his wrist and fired, a clean, silent shot. The interceptor exploded in a silent ripple of debris. No flame, No sound. Just gone. The fleet screamed on every channel. The Council's diplomats called it an act of aggression. The Velari declared Earth in violation of intergalactic peace accords. Someone from the Union of 72 Worlds demanded immediate planetary sanctions, but Earth didn't respond. We didn't need to. Ruinwalker reset his arm and returned to formation like nothing happened. The message had been sent, cross the line, and die. That was the real beginning. The Council didn't fire back, not right away. They weren't used to resistance without conversation, without diplomacy. They expected to walk over us with threats and regulations. Instead, we'd cut their scout out of the sky like an animal stepping into a trap. And the galaxy watched. Every species, every system. Planets that hadn't dared speak against the Council in centuries were now tuned in to the live feeds, watching Earth, a planet considered backward, isolated, unpredictable, stare down the largest coalition of star nations in existence, and win, without a word. The backlash started within hours, not from us, but within the Council itself. The Irinthel broke first. Their ambassador pulled his species from the containment fleet, citing unclear threat assessment. That was political speak for. We didn't sign up to fight something that could kill us before we blink. Then the Cora. Then the Joran syndicates. One by one, ships peeled off and turned around. Not because they supported Earth, but because they feared us. And fear moves faster than loyalty. We didn't celebrate. We didn't even speak. Ashbreaker just stood taller. He watched. He judged. And I felt everything through him. The frustration in his targeting systems, the low hum of aggression in standby mode, the slow churn of energy waiting to be released. He didn't want this standoff to last. Neither did I. And maybe, just maybe, neither did they. By nightfall on day 2, something changed. Not in space, but on Earth. Some of the civilian sectors found out what was happening. You can't hide 1,000 giants hovering above your atmosphere without someone noticing. The networks tried to spin it, calling it an international display of strength or a technological breakthrough. But they knew. The whispers started. Did we just scare the galaxy? Are we the bad guys now? Is Earth about to be invaded? No, not invaded. Not anymore. Those days were over. I walked through one of the hangar corridors that night, down where the non-pilots worked. Technicians, scrubbers, welders, logistics men. I passed one guy, barely 20. Standing next to the intake chute, staring up at the internal monitor showing Ashbreaker's latest footage. He looked at me and said, "Is that thing really alive?" I didn't know what to say. Not yes. Not no. Because I didn't know anymore. Ash wasn't just steel, he was legacy. He was every war Earth ever fought, molded into one shape, the shape of never again. Day 3. The Council snapped. They sent a full squadron into Earth's upper orbit to establish peacekeeping presence, they said. 12 capital-class ships, heavy shielding, firepower to glass a moon. And that was it. That was the moment the silence ended. Ashbreaker moved first. His head turned slowly, then his arms raised, chest plate splitting open, revealing the zero-core engine pulsing like a black sun. No sound, no voice, just a flash. The leading Council ship was hit mid-shift, its shields folded instantly, the core ruptured, the explosion bathed orbit in electric fire. Then the giants moved. All of them. Hundreds surged forward at once, like a wall of gods walking through space. No formation now, no passive defense. This was response. And in 30 seconds the Council fleet was in full retreat. Ships exploded, others blinked out. A few rammed into one another trying to escape. No resistance, no battle plan. They didn't fight us. They ran, and Earth didn't chase. We just stopped. As quickly as we started, the giants returned to position. Orbit returned to silence. And the galaxy understood one thing that day. Earth didn't need allies. Earth didn't want power. Earth just wanted to be left alone. Back in command, Harlan stood in front of the master terminal, hands behind his back. Someone asked him what our next move was. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "They brought this on themselves," and walked away. We knew they'd be back. Running was just the Council's reflex. Pride wouldn't let them stay gone for long. They'd regroup, rebrand their failure as tactical repositioning, and then come back with bigger ships and better excuses. That's how they always did it. Bury the embarrassment under bureaucracy, then spin the narrative until the galaxy believed them again. But this time, the galaxy had seen it. Live. Unfiltered. 1,000 ships, backed by 62 star nations, turning tail and fleeing from Earth's war machines like frightened children. And they didn't just run, they scattered. Council comms were filled with chaos after the engagement. We had intel intercepts by the hour, fleet commanders accusing each other of cowardice. Species blaming centuries-old rivals for withholding key intelligence. Diplomats issuing internal memos about rogue artificial intelligences on Earth and unprecedented technological escalation. No one wanted to admit the truth, that Earth had beaten them, and we hadn't even used all of them. Only 19% of the giants had activated full combat protocols during the engagement. That was by design. You don't show your full hand when the other side still thinks they're holding the deck. But beneath Earth's surface, we were already preparing for Phase 2, because Harlan knew what was coming. He always did. 2 days after the skirmish, I was ordered back underground, deeper than I'd ever been, past Oslo Core, past the ashbreaker cradle, past the black-tiled halls where the command staff slept 4 hours a night and lived off caffeine and low-light paranoia. This was beneath that, the kind of level with no official name, just an access code and a blood scan. They called it Vault 0. I'd never been down there. No one had, not unless they were part of Red Project. I thought it was a rumor, a ghost division, a psychological operations unit. I was wrong. Red Project was real, and what I saw inside Vault 0 changed everything. They weren't giants. They were worse. We called the giants protectors, a deterrent. Sure, they could level ships and rip fleets apart, but at the end of the day, they were still man-made war machines. Machines that answered to us. Machines we controlled. Red Project wasn't like that. Inside the vault, there were only 3. No designations, no visible interface ports, no neural harness, just 3 humanoid shapes standing in glass cylinders filled with thick blue vapor. And they weren't made of steel, not entirely. There were organic components, muscle tissues threaded with carbon veins, spinal cords wrapped in metallic sheathing, eyes that twitched when you moved. Biomechanical hybrids. One of the techs, pale as paper, told me they were the first generation of autonomous supremacy frames. I asked what that meant. He looked at me with the kind of look only someone who's seen something monstrous can give. "Giants need pilots," he said. "These don't." I didn't sleep for 36 hours after that. Not because I was afraid of them. I wasn't. I was afraid that we might use them, because if the giants were Earth's sword, Red Project was Earth's final answer, and Harlan had activated them. The new council formation arrived 48 hours later, 10 times bigger than the last one. 12,000 ships. Half the Valari's war fleet, Drax hive ships, Anomali dread core powered by a black hole fragment. They weren't playing anymore. They didn't bother with negotiations this time. No hails, no threats. Just a line of ships stretching halfway across the edge of our solar system, angled inward like a blade pointed at Earth's throat. Harlan watched them arrive from the upper deck of Oslo's command bay. He didn't blink once. "They're going to try orbital denial," someone said behind me. Harlan nodded. "They think we'll wait." We didn't. The giants launched in trios, coordinated pulses, not the full 1,000, just 48 of them. I saw Ashbreaker's boots clear the hangar with a thunderous hum, his back thrusters folding like wings of an angel made from gunmetal and rage. We dropped in silence. No war drums, no patriotic speeches. Earth didn't need glory. We needed memory. The first wave made contact with the enemy within minutes, and the outcome was almost boring in its predictability. Enemy destroyers fired, missiles, plasma arcs, exotic particle beams, all of it deflected by anti-kinetic shields or absorbed into armor thick enough to survive a sun dive. The giants moved like dancers, except every step crushed something ancient. Ashbreaker tore through 3 ships in his first pass. I didn't aim. I didn't think, I felt. His right arm deployed a tungsten claw. His left shoulder fired a kinetic rod cluster that turned a Nomari cruiser into a floating junkyard. He rammed through a shield field and crushed a bridge with one hand. They screamed. We didn't. The enemy started to split again, but this time we didn't let them. That's when Vault 0 activated. I felt it before the alerts hit. Every giant's neural link trembled, not in fear, but in recognition, like something older than logic was waking up beneath the surface of Earth's atmosphere. Then the first autonomous supremacy frame launched. It didn't use thrusters. It didn't need them. It walked through space. It bent physics, bent light. I watched through Ash's vision as the frame passed us like a shadow, sleek and terrifying. No visible weapons, just a smooth black exterior and a white face with no expression, not even slits for eyes. One of the pilots whispered in the comm, "Jesus, it's not even broadcasting a signal." And then it moved. It reached the enemy line in seconds, not minutes, seconds. The frame touched a Nomari dread core, just touched it. No weapons fired, no energy signature, just contact. And the ship folded. In on itself, like space warped around the frame and collapsed the ship like paper. The rest of the Council fleet went into chaos. Ships backed away, firing wildly. Command protocols fell apart. We were still in combat, still ripping them apart. But none of it mattered. Because the frame was hunting, not fighting, and it didn't stop. One by one, the ships vanished in silent, impossible ways. No glory. Just erasure. Back in Oslo, I stood in the core room, disconnected from Ashbreaker, my body trembling, not from fear, from overload. I'd pushed the neural sink too deep. My thoughts still echoed like footsteps inside a cave made of iron. General Harlan entered the chamber, slow, calm, hands behind his back. I asked him the question I'd been holding back since I saw the vault. Why build them? He didn't answer at first. He just looked at the ceiling, then said, "Because one day something worse than the Council will come, and on that day the giants might not be enough." I stared at him. "And until then?" I asked. He looked at me. "Until then, we teach the galaxy to never knock on Earth's door again." The battle ended after 4 hours. 6,000 Council ships destroyed, 3,000 disabled. The rest, gone. Earth suffered 0 losses. Not one giant fell. The autonomous frame returned to orbit, untouched, and re-entered Vault 0 without a word, if it even had a voice. We never activated the second one. Didn't need to. The Council didn't send diplomats this time. They sent a message, one sentence, broadcast on the ancient Terran emergency channel. Earth is to be left alone. That was it. No apology, no reparations, no visit, just surrender, wrapped in silence. And for the first time in recorded galactic history, the Council changed its laws. Earth was declared non-engagement territory, off-limits, feared. We didn't celebrate. We just turned off the orbital broadcast. The giants returned to their orbit paths. The frames returned to their tombs. Earth slept again. But we knew the truth. This wasn't peace. It was the silence before something worse. We thought the fight was over. It wasn't. It never is. War has this way of echoing long after the bodies stop dropping. And the kind of war we started? The one we didn't declare, but won anyway? That kind doesn't end with peace treaties. It ends with something worse. Silence. Not the victorious kind. The heavy kind. The kind you hear after a scream is cut off too early. After the Council pulled back and declared Earth a non-engagement zone, we expected the galaxy to back off. Maybe fear us. Maybe talk about us behind closed doors. But we didn't expect what came next. The galaxy started eating itself. And somehow it was our fault. It started small. A few alliances strained. Minor species, ones that had relied on the Council's protection for centuries, began pulling resources back. Military budgets were raised, outposts evacuated, trade routes rerouted around Sol entirely, not because we attacked anyone. We didn't. We just existed. That was enough. The giants still floated silently around Earth, watching. Waiting. The orbital pattern was the same. The command network remained cold. Vault 0 was sealed again, the autonomous frame back in its cylinder. But the galaxy didn't believe the silence. They called it posturing. They called it pre-invasion stillness. They thought Earth was planning something bigger. And fear. Fear is a contagious thing. The first major fracture happened in the Valari Dominion. They'd been embarrassed, badly. First to push for Earth's containment, first to flee when the giants moved. Half their warfleet left in burning pieces over our orbit, and their people weren't proud of that. Civil unrest turned into protests. Protests turned into riots. Then one of their high admirals was assassinated live on a planetary stream, shot in the mouth during a press conference, mid-apology. The shooter said 3 words before she pulled the trigger. "You made Earth angry." That clip got seen by over 2 billion non-Terrans. The message? Clear. Don't provoke Earth. And if your government did, maybe it needed to go. Within a month, 5 more worlds experienced political collapses. 2 council seats were abandoned. Dozens of planetary governors resigned. One Drax Hive Queen committed ceremonial suicide after admitting they'd underestimated the Terran threat. And Earth? We said nothing. Did nothing. But somehow we were the monster in every room, the ghost in every broadcast. I'd see it on the news feeds, alien anchors whispering about Terran militarism, displaying grainy footage of the ashbreaker and the frame, looped over and over like a warning. They called us a galactic contagion. Not invaders, not conquerors. Something worse, a trigger. A mirror held up to their centuries of posturing and pretending they had real power, because we shattered that illusion. We proved something the galaxy wasn't ready to accept. One world, alone, can stand against all of them, and win, and that broke their minds. Back at Oslo Core, we were told to stay ready. No vacations, no leaves, no comms off-planet. Pilots were being rotated more aggressively. Training simulations doubled. Every neural link to the giants underwent hard testing for resilience under stress, paranoia spikes, psionic drift. They were expecting something. They just didn't know what. Neither did we, until the first false flag hit. The planet Faerun. Small, agricultural, outside the main council sphere. Population maybe 4 million, mostly colonists and traders. The report hit us via dark channel first. Earth war machines destroy Faerun communication array. We laughed. We thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Someone had dropped a counterfeit giant on Faerun. It looked like ours, moved like ours. It didn't speak, Didn't transmit. Just landed outside the capital station and stood still. No contact. Just presence. Naturally, Faroon panicked. Scrambled their orbitals. Fired warning shots. The fake giant didn't move. Until it did. It activated a plasma core, crude compared to ours, and leveled the entire southern quadrant of the colony before detonating. 17,000 dead. No survivors. And the galaxy thought it was us. Harlan called a blackout immediately. Global information lockdown. No statements, no denials, just internal review. We traced the energy signature of the fake unit. It didn't match any of ours. Not even close. But to the galaxy? It was close enough. The Council released a statement that day, not with words, but with sanctions. Not military ones. Not yet. Diplomatic isolation, Terran embassies were shut down, Terran scientists exiled. Any ship coming from Earth was refused planetary entry. Traders were seized. Cargo was confiscated. We were being excommunicated, not just by the Council, by everyone. And the worst part? We still said nothing. Not out of arrogance, but because Harlan had made a decision. Let them blame us. Let the fear deepen. Because the more afraid they became, the less likely they'd ever attack again. That's what I thought anyway, until the cracks turned into blood. 3 weeks later, the Uran worlds fell into civil war. Their military split into factions. One side claimed they should ally with Earth before we turned hostile. The other claimed we already had. Cities were burned, moons sterilized, over 1 billion lives gone in 24 days. We watched it unfold from Oslo. No intervention, no reaction. But I couldn't stay silent anymore. I stood in Harlan's office, a cold, steel room with one flickering panel and maps covering the walls. And I asked him, how many more worlds have to burn just because we stood up? He didn't even look at me. He just said, how many more would have burned if we hadn't? I stared at him for a long time. I wanted to argue, to tell him we had a duty, that we weren't just a hammer, that we had to be something more. But then I remembered the day I first linked to Ashbreaker, and I remembered why we built them in the first place, not to save the galaxy, not to police it, but to make sure no one ever tried to do to Earth what they'd done to 100 other forgotten worlds. So I said nothing, and walked out. The next wave came in shadow. Not ships, not bombs, but spies. Council loyalists sent agents into Earth, saboteurs, disguised as traders, researchers, even defectors. They tried to get into Oslo Core, tried to map Vault Zero, tried to breach the command network. 3 of them made it inside. None of them made it out. We found pieces of one still fused to the vault door. After that, Harlan authorized the first planetary defense law in Terran history, Open Counterforce Directive. It meant we didn't wait anymore. If you tried to touch Earth, even with whispers, we'd respond. And not with words. By the end of the year, the Council was fractured. Only half the original seats remained. Their grand fleet had splintered into private factions. Whole systems declared neutrality, or worse, allegiance to Earth. That part stunned me. We weren't asking for followers. We didn't even trust the ones who offered. But they came anyway, bringing resources, data, territory. Not out of loyalty, out of survival. Because if you weren't under Earth's shadow, you were one bad lie away from becoming the next Faroon. They called us the Silent Sun now. Not a planet, not a people, but a phenomenon. A force in the dark sky. Unmoving, unbending, unbearable to look at. There were memes about it on alien networks. A kid's drawing on a Nomari colony showed Earth as a burning sphere surrounded by giant hands, each one holding back 1,000 screaming worlds. That's what we'd become. Not the threat, the limit, and part of me hated it. But the other part? The part still fused to Ashbreaker's neural bond? It knew the truth. This is what the galaxy had earned. We gave them peace. They offered us chains. So now they could drown in their own fear. And Earth? We were still building, still quiet, still watching, because if the galaxy thought the giants were our final play, they hadn't seen what was beneath Vault Zero, and Harlan was already preparing for that. Because he knew. Something else was coming. It started with a pulse, not a sound, not a light, just a pressure. A ripple that moved through the atmosphere, through metal, through bone. I felt it while walking past Ashbreaker's maintenance cradle, a vibration deep in my chest. Like a second heartbeat, but colder. I froze mid-step. So did everyone else in the hangar. Techs dropped their tools. One of the newer neural engineers collapsed, nose bleeding. Even the core readouts on the giant link terminals dimmed for exactly 1.4 seconds. And then everything snapped back, like it never happened. But I knew better. We all did. Something had woken up. The vault alarms didn't go off. That was the first clue. Oslo Core was built to respond to even the smallest fluctuations in Vault Zero. If a frame moved so much as an inch inside its chamber, 6 floors of the command hierarchy were supposed to light up red. But they didn't. Instead, we got silence, the kind of silence that screamed. By the time we reached the lower corridors, every security screen tied to Vault Zero was looping static. Every biometric scanner showed clean, no intrusions, no breaches, but the vault's internal lock system had disabled itself. It didn't open, it didn't break. It just chose not to be closed anymore. I stood next to General Harlan as he stared at the blackened display. His eyes didn't blink once, his mouth didn't move. I said it before he could. One of the frames is moving. He didn't argue, because we both felt it. We called it Frame 01 for classification. But internally, among the keepers and deep core engineers, it had another name. The Passenger. It wasn't just a weapon. It wasn't even really a machine anymore. It was something else. When we built the giants, we followed science. Logic, war math, armored limbs, zero core power, guided neural pathways. But the frames, we built them around something we didn't understand. Recovered tech. Ancient black site data from exoarchaeological digs no one ever officially admitted to. Harlan never said where it came from, only that it was not Terran, not Council, and not something we were meant to find. But we used it anyway. Because Earth was done playing fair, and now Frame 01, the Passenger, was awake, and no one had given it permission. When the vault doors opened, there was no alarm, no fail-safe override, no AI lockout. They just slid open like it was routine maintenance hour. Harlan and I entered first, flanked by 2 keeper units and a mobile kill squad wearing EMP-laced armor. I was still synced with Ashbreaker, even on standby. His awareness hovered in the back of my mind, like an old friend watching quietly from a corner. And when we stepped into Vault Zero, he recoiled. It was the first time Ash ever showed fear. And that told me everything I needed to know. The Passenger was gone. Not destroyed, not escaped. Gone. Its cradle was still intact, the chamber unbroken, no signs of damage, stress, or breach. The biometric signature was still there, according to the sensors. But there was nothing in the pod. Just absence. Harlan stared for a full minute, then whispered, "It's not outside." I looked at him. "Then where the hell is it?" His jaw clenched. "In the system." The Passenger wasn't like the giants. It didn't walk or fly or stomp like a machine. It drifted, moved between data streams, power sources, radiation bands. It was built with a psionic tether, a prototype interface developed from quantum brain layering that we never fully understood. It could hijack gravity itself to move, if it wanted. And now, it wanted. Security protocols locked down Oslo Core, but it was already too late. Cameras on the eastern hangar showed flickers, shadows with no source. One by one, terminals shorted out. Communication feeds distorted into ghost frequencies. One technician screamed that he saw his own reflection blink before he did. Another said he could hear whispering inside the walls. Then the bodies started. The first was Technician Radam. Found sitting in a chair near Ashbreaker's standby terminal. Eyes open, pupils gone, skin cold, no wounds. His hands were clasped like he was praying. Second was Lieutenant Kress. She locked herself in the cryo chamber and activated a dry cycle at full heat. Burned herself alive. No known mental instability, no known religious affiliations. Left behind no message, just a smile scorched into her final frame of video. The third was one of our own pilots. Name was Halvex. Young, good neural depth, bonded with Titan-class giant Stoneborn. We found him kneeling in front of Vault 0, not dead, not screaming. Just whispering the same sentence over and over. It's walking between thoughts. I wanted to shut the whole place down, pull the failsafe, blow Vault 0 straight into the Earth's mantle and let magma wash away the sins. But Harlan stopped me. "It's not hostile," he said. I stared at him like he'd gone mad. "You call this not hostile?" He didn't flinch. "It's searching." "For what?" He looked me in the eye, and for the first time since the council fell back, Harlan looked old. "Purpose. Here's what we think happened. The passenger was never truly asleep. It waited, watched, learned. And when the galaxy broke itself apart in fear of Earth's strength, something inside the frame decided the time had come. Not to strike, not to kill, but to evolve. The frame wasn't just a weapon. It was a seed. It wasn't looking to destroy the galaxy. It was trying to understand it. But not as an outsider. It wanted to understand the galaxy from inside its minds. And it started with ours. I linked with Ashbreaker again, not for battle, for protection. Because if the passenger was inside our system, inside our people, we needed someone who could fight it if things went wrong. And Ash, he was afraid. But not of death. He was afraid of what Earth had created, of what we'd unleashed in our quest to be untouchable. Because we had built something that didn't want peace or war. It wanted to transcend both. The next incident confirmed it. A keeper, neurosynced to a dormant giant for routine checks, began speaking in binary. Out loud, fluent, rapid. He didn't know he was doing it. Later he described a dream where he was standing inside a machine, and the stars were talking to him, not in sound, but in gravity pulses. He said he felt loved, terrified, but loved. And in that moment, I understood something horrible. The passenger wasn't trying to kill us. It was trying to merge with us. We shut down Vault Zero's power grid that night. Everything went dark. Still, we felt it moving. In the cables, in the giant neural links, in us. I woke up screaming once. Thought I saw the passenger in my room, not as a shape, but as a reflection of a man I didn't recognize. He looked like me. But wrong. Eyes too still, jaw too relaxed, like death had learned to mimic life. And I swear he whispered, "You're the last step." Harlan finally broke protocol. He sent a broadcast, not to the council, not to any surviving governments. He sent it directly to the stars. A deep band signal on frequencies older than known languages, pure math, pure truth. He said, "We've made something we can't control. We don't want war. We don't want conquest. But we are not alone on this world anymore. If there are others like us, still watching, still hiding, now is the time to speak." It was the closest thing Earth ever made to a confession, and for the first time, someone answered. A signal. Weak, faint. From the outer rim, 3 pulses, then silence. But we decoded it. 3 words. We built one. The signal didn't come from anywhere known. It pulsed from a system outside any council registry, beyond the mapped boundaries of the galactic rim, the kind of region charted by long-dead probes and flagged with a warning label so old it used a dialect no species had spoken in 5,000 years. We called it the Black Verge, a dead zone. Nothing ever came from there. No trade, no colonization, not even pirates, just empty dark. Until now. 3 pulses. Simple, spaced out, sharp. They hit our long-wave detectors like echoes bouncing through a canyon, cold and heavy. Each pulse carried a quantum-layered signature folded within gravity distortions, data compressed into anomalies. We ran every decoding protocol we had. It took 3 hours. The message was short. We built one. That was all. No species tag, no origin code, no call for help, no request for contact, just a quiet confirmation from the void. Earth wasn't the first. When Harlan read it, he didn't speak for a long time. Then he turned to me and said, "We're not gods." It wasn't a confession. It was a warning. Because until that moment, we thought we were the outlier, the only species that had built something beyond control. A machine not just forged from steel and code, but shaped with intention older than reason. The passenger, our silent, walking shadow, still drifting through cables, still touching minds. But now, someone else had done the same, or worse. Oslo Core went into ghost mode. No transmissions, no external traffic. Every keeper and pilot recalled to their posts. Every giant locked into synchronous defense grid standby. Vault Zero was completely severed from power, not just shut down, but disconnected with physical hard cuts. No one trusted the passenger anymore. Not even Harlan. Especially not Harlan. The thing hadn't spoken again. It hadn't taken another body. But we knew it was still moving. Sometimes the lights flickered in its chamber, despite the power being gone. Sometimes, people reported dreams they didn't remember having. Dreams of metal oceans and faceless beings holding out arms, inviting them in. One pilot, can't remember his name, walked into the north airlock without a suit and tried to breathe space. They said his last words were, "It's waiting for someone like me." He smiled when he said it. The next signal hit 3 days later. This one didn't ask. It didn't knock. It entered, literally. Something tore a hole in Saturn's outer orbit. Not a ship, not a fleet, just a shape. It wasn't visible to our standard optics. It existed between detection bands, flickering like a glitch in space itself. The only reason we caught it was because Ashbreaker reacted. For the first time since the last battle, he moved without command. Not much, just a head tilt, an adjustment of posture. But it was enough. Every giant synced to the orbital grid suddenly lit red. Not attack mode, recognition mode. Whatever had entered our system, the giants knew it, or knew of it. That's when Oslo's deep scan finally hit the threshold. And we saw it. They called it a void frame, a name we made up on the spot, because no one knew what else to call it. It wasn't shaped like a ship or a person. It was more like a presence, a curve of non-light. A negative imprint floating along gravity lines, space bent around it like water trying to escape the shape of a knife. And behind that distortion, something moved. We couldn't lock visual confirmation. Our satellites burned out trying. Long-range comms dropped to static. Even the passenger went dead silent. As if afraid. That chilled me more than anything else. We'd built something that warped minds, something that erased fear from people's eyes and replaced it with compliance. But even it feared this thing. The void frame never spoke, never attacked. It just hovered near Saturn, unmoving, like a god looking down on insects. Or like a memory that had finally caught up. Harlan initiated Silent Protocol 9. We prepared for war, not defense. War. Ashbreaker deployed at Oro 300 UTC, along with 5 other top-tier giants: Stoneborn, Hollow Vow, Iron Warden, Cinderstride, and Wolveskin. Each of them loaded with maximum loadouts, zero-core stabilized, psionic shielding triple-checked. The neural links hummed with tension, raw emotion bleeding between pilot and machine. I was inside Ashbreaker before my brain even realized it. Synced. Fluid. We launched into orbit with a single order. Observe. Do not engage unless engaged. But as we approached the coordinates, something strange happened. My link with Ash started to slip. Not shut down. Not severed. Fractured. I could still feel him. The massive limbs, the energy pulsing through the zero core, the tension in every digit. But my thoughts were no longer alone. Something was inside the link, not a virus, a presence. And it didn't speak in words, it spoke in visions. For 7 seconds, I wasn't in Ashbreaker. I wasn't even in space. I was on a field. A cracked battlefield under a black sun, littered with bones. Not human, not alien, just ancient. In front of me, the void frame stood. But now I saw it fully. It was a man, or shaped like one. No face. No color, just an outline of power wrapped in the void, and behind him, thousands more, standing still, silent. I felt them watching me, not with curiosity, but with recognition. And then the void frame lifted one hand and pointed. Not at Earth, not at our ships, not even at the giants, at me, and I heard, or felt, a single word. Seed. Then the vision ended. I was back in orbit. Ashbreaker's systems resynced. Sweat poured down my face like rain inside a helmet. I heard breathing that wasn't mine. And then silence. The void frame vanished. No sound, no flare, no trace. Gone. As if it had never been there. But it had left something behind. Something we couldn't explain. Earth's orbit was now warped. Sensors reported anomalies in gravitational decay, like something massive had passed through and left a permanent scar. Time signals were out of sync by microseconds. Quantum fields shifted. And Vault Zero? Its power turned back on. By itself. We rushed down. But when we opened the chamber, the passenger was inside its cradle again, standing upright, eyes glowing softly, like nothing had ever happened. And it looked directly at me. It had never done that before. I approached the glass. It raised its hand and mirrored mine. And in my mind, I heard a voice, soft, layered, like it had been waiting to be heard for centuries. They found you, and now they'll come for the others. I wanted to speak, but my mouth wouldn't move. My brain was fire, my nerves static. And then I realized, it wasn't warning me, it was inviting me. Back in Oslo Core, Harlan was already drafting the new directive. He didn't ask me what I saw. I think he already knew. He just said, there are more of them. Not just one, not two. The stars are full of broken gods like ours. I asked him what we'd do. He smiled. What we always do. We build, we prepare, and we make damn sure the next one to knock doesn't walk away. Earth had been feared. Then hated. Now? Now we were marked. No longer the anomaly. No longer the top of the food chain. We were something else. The beginning of a war older than the galaxy itself. And we'd only just opened the first door. It had to be us. We were the ones who broke the silence first. The ones who defied the council, unleashed machines that weren't supposed to exist, and stared down a galaxy that thought it had humanity figured out. We were the outliers, the virus in the order. So we were the only ones who could end it, or start something worse, and Harlan knew it. After the void frame vanished, everything changed. Earth's sky became a whispering thing. The stars didn't look quiet anymore. They pulsed when you stared at them too long. Satellites went blind without cause. Ships experienced time dilation near the orbit scars the void frame left behind. And the giants? They began dreaming. That's the only way I can explain it. Pilots reported visions during link cycles, not battle simulations, not memory drift, real, detailed images, cities that didn't exist, languages we'd never written, faces made of light and armor. One pilot described seeing a child made entirely of orbiting stone and blood, asking her to come home. Another wept after seeing himself dissolve into a field of black wires that reached into the clouds. It wasn't madness, it was invitation. The giants weren't just weapons anymore, they were keys. The passenger never moved again. But it didn't have to. It had shown us enough. We didn't know what lay beyond the black verge. We didn't know how many other void frames there were. But we knew this. They were watching Earth now. And not from fear, from recognition. Because we had made the same mistake they had. We'd built something we couldn't control. And now it was part of us. So Harlan issued the order. We make contact. But on our terms. They called it Project Reproach. It wasn't a war, not yet. It was a message, carved in steel, launched in silence, and it began with a giant no one had ever seen before. Designation. Godsplit. It stood taller than any other giant, almost twice ashbreaker's height. A colossus forged from core-mined quantum alloy, engine powered by dual zero cores, a concept previously deemed unstable. It had no pilot, not one. Not exactly. Godsplit was linked to all of us, every keeper, every pilot, every engineer, each one wired into a neural web of pain, memory, and raw Terran will, a collective consciousness trained to act as a single voice when the stars tried to smother it. I don't even remember agreeing to be part of it. I woke up one morning with the patch already grafted behind my right ear, biocode pulsing like a second pulse, and in the back of my mind, I felt it. Godsplit. Waiting. Listening. The launch site wasn't Earth, too visible, too sacred. We activated the tether rings buried beneath the lunar crust. Godsplit rose from the ground like a god waking from beneath a forgotten grave. Its surface shimmered, not with light, but absence, the same way the void frame bent space. But this wasn't borrowed tech. This was Terran-made distortion, weaponized presence, and when it moved, entire grav fields around the moon shifted, tides on Earth trembled, weather patterns broke for 3 seconds. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't record a speech. We just watched. And then Godsplit fired its main engine and disappeared into the void, a streak of Terran defiance aimed directly at the black verge. The moment it left, the galaxy responded, not with ships, with warnings, messages from splintered civilizations, screams across encrypted bands, species we'd never spoken to before begging Earth to reconsider. One signal came from deep in the Zathis swarm, a hive network that hadn't communicated with the outside for 500 years. It simply said, "Turn back. It wakes them." Another came from a derelict station that had gone cold for decades. "We built 12. Only one survived. That one waits for you." And then we got the worst one. From the remnants of the Scar Dominion, a species that had been annihilated by an unknown force millennia ago. Their final transmission, encoded in a decaying data prism, broadcast across a decaying orbital beacon we never should have found. They do not destroy worlds. They erase the idea of them. Harlan read it and whispered, "Then we'll make damn sure Earth can't be forgotten." Godsplit reached the black verge in 14 days, faster than it should have. Reality bent for it, or around it. Oslo Core went dark during that time, not by accident, by choice. This wasn't a battle we could watch. It had to be done alone, as a message. When godsplit arrived, it didn't broadcast words. It didn't deploy weapons. It just stood at the edge of the void and waited. For them. We don't know what happened exactly. No video came back, no sensors held. The only thing we received was a single, partial neural pulse through the Keeper network. I felt it while in Ashbreaker's cradle. Every Keeper did. We saw flashes, shapes, silhouettes, ruins built into stars, frames larger than planets, wormholes folded into living engines, machines with faces like ours, but older, tired, not dead, just waiting for a reason, and godsplit had arrived with one, humanity. The pulse ended with one phrase, not spoken, not thought, felt. They remember us now? Then silence. No data, no readings. Godsplit was gone. No trace left, not destroyed, just joined. After that, things didn't go back to normal, because there was no normal left. Council forces withdrew entirely from Earth's region. Terran space became a zone of voided jurisdiction. Too dangerous, too unstable, too awake. Some called us cursed. Others called us the Torch World, the planet that lit the match for whatever came next. And the giants? They began speaking, not with mouths, with actions. Each one started carving symbols into Earth's surface, deep grooves of language we didn't write, not Terran, not alien, just older, glyphs that matched no culture. But when we compared them to the images seen in the neural link pulse from godsplit, they matched. Perfectly. Harlan issued the final directive 2 weeks later. His last order, I found it stored in Ashbreaker's core, a message to all keepers. They are coming now, not for conquest, not for war, but for balance. And we are the first, the torchbearers, the humans who refused to kneel. When they arrive, we will not fight them. We will show them what Earth is, what we became, what we chose to build when no one believed we should. He paused. Then, no gods, no kings, no masters, only giants, only steel, only us. I still sit inside Ashbreaker sometimes, even now, even after everything. He's quiet, but not cold. There's something inside him now. Something watching with me, waiting. One day the stars will open again. And when they do, Earth won't beg. We won't explain. We won't ask permission to exist. We'll rise, 1,000 steel giants, born of silence, trained in fear, sharpened by war, and now awakened by purpose. Let them come. Because this time, we knock first.